Mr. Bone, you wanted to come in?
Well, for the sake of debate, I think anybody can say anything. But for the purpose of unity, and in principle, while I have deep respect for Professor Jeffrey Sachs, there are some points which I cannot agree with you. Then what will happen if the people, the status of Donbass, where partially Russians have taken, and they are taking so-called voting, whether they will be merged into a Russian Federation or they will remain it. But all these can be easily fabricated and easily mobilized by Russian Federation. When it comes to Crimea case, it happened during my time as the Secretary General. It's not that there was not any reactions about this, but the problem was that then President Yanukovych was a very pro-Putin, pro-Russian president. Just before he fled, I had really serious quarrel with him in Moscow, at the time of just a few days before he fled. Then, to be frank, when Russia annexed this Crimea, the United Nations and all other, even Americans, didn't react much negatively. It happened that way, in the name of voting by the people. Then under the leadership, under all this support of President Yanukovych, and you know what happened in Ukraine at that time. There was some big demonstrations against Ukraine, against the Ukrainian president, against this one. In Moscow, I had, normally I'm just a quiet and a gentle person, and I really, really wanted to maintain good relationship with any head of state. But for any such dictators and those people like Yanukovych, I really brushed my face and diehard quarrel with him. Yeah. You must not do this way. You must listen to the voices of the people. Then what happened? Just 3 days or 4 days later, he fled. Yeah. I think he must be somewhere under protection of Putin. So we should understand this one. Then if we apply the logic of Professor Sachs, then what will happen to Donbass and other southern places where they are now taking a vote? Then will they be just automatically transferred to, incorporated into Russian Federation? That's something which we have to do. About the relationship between European Union and America, I know that during the time of President Trump, he was really forcing the European Union. It was almost divisive. So I was really very worried, concerned about the way President Trump was forcing European Union. Their partners, their allies, that was not the proper policy vis-a-vis very important allies. Now, then, I'll just stop there. Then, what would be done at this time? Still, if I may say so, I may be sometimes known as pro-American. No, it's not. I am just talking about the principles. Still, we need U.S. leadership. Whether the Cuban Missile Crisis was done with the negotiation or negotiated settlement, it saved billions of people's lives. In that regard, we have to highly applaud Kennedy's leadership. That's why Kennedy is still respected and admired for his leadership. At this time, the unity between solidarity and unity between European Union and United States should be further strengthened without any signs of division.
Good.
Otherwise, you will be used by Russia or any other.
Well, these are interesting histories. I was in the Maidan. I was there when Yanukovych fled. I sometimes think had he stayed at home, none of this would have been necessary. But that's an interesting conversation. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We're coming
my
to a
suggestion
close.
since we are
Yes,
lack of time now.
I want to give Jeff a chance.
My suggestion at this time, let us revive the Nuclear Security Summit meeting, which was initiated by President Obama in 2010. Unfortunately, this Nuclear Security Summit ended in 2016 when President Obama was also leaving. Just a couple of months later. It happened first in 2010 in Washington, second in Seoul, Korea, third in Netherlands. That was the last, but President Obama really wanted to do one more summit meeting. 58 states, whether they are nuclear power state or not, some possible and very strong and reasonably strong and responsible member state of the United Nations. 58 member states participated in 4 times. I think this is time for United States President Biden to reconvene Nuclear Security Summit, because never in the past have we seen this kind of very diehard, serious situation over this nuclear weapons might be used. That's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. A good one. We have 2 minutes and 35 seconds left. Jeff, do you want to respond to the Secretary General?
Yeah. Of course, we've not discussed these issues in detail, but I was also in the Maidan, and my very strong impression was that the United States contributed to the overthrow of Yanukovych. Of course, there was popular movement, but there was also a U.S. role that was very direct. And that was one of the reasons why so much happened afterwards. There was a lot of violence on the Ukrainian side. There was a lot of U.S. role. Some of it was captured online and released by Russian security. Victoria Nuland speaking so pleasantly about Europe, by the way, but also Victoria Nuland, who is one of our neoconservatives and married to one of our leading neoconservatives in the United States, is the Undersecretary of State of the United States today under the Biden administration, the one that contributed to the overthrow of Yanukovych in 2014. The Russians see that as a coup and as a pretext for the actions that they took subsequently. I think there's truth to that. Not all the truth, but some. So there are perspectives on both sides. But this has never been explained because nothing of U.S. foreign policy is ever publicly explained. That's the first rule. Everything needs to be deciphered. You have to be on the inside to see with your own eyes, as I happen to be in the Maidan by a weird quirk of fate. Otherwise, you don't see it. We depend on the New York Times to tell us these things. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But the story is much more complicated from my point of view. Similarly, I would say that the JCPOA was killed by the United States. Let's be clear. Trump walked out of it, and the Iranians are right. What is this? We negotiate, then you continue the sanctions, then you make more demands, and then all the complaints are about Iran. What about the United States? It's unbelievable. And why did the North Korean negotiations fail? My impression is 2 words. John Bolton. I may be wrong, but the United States never followed through on what it promised. Maybe 4 words. John Bolton, Bill Clinton. Because there were specific promises made to North Korea, none of them fulfilled. That's a little simplistic, but there's 2 sides to these issues. And our problem is we pretend that there's one side to them. So if we get people together negotiating, and if we make foreign policy transparent, not a hidden game, I think we will make the world a lot safer. That's my
Great. I think that's a very good place to end this panel.
姐妹们总烦恼脸上细纹干燥与暗沉，现在起跟我一起放心交给 KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹系列。KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹系列，它添加5种 EGF， 专门防止肌肤老化，强化皮肤修复，增加肌肤弹性水嫩，轻松抚平皱纹，换回青春自信。KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹，活肤露、全效精华、精华霜，即刻启动冻龄密码。